You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham. Sorry for my absence the last week or so. I had a big birthday. I turned 40 years old. Yes, 40. It's unbelievable. Thank you for being here. Before I dive into that, we are, of course, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcasts. We are there. Please hit that subscribe button, whatever platform you are on. That can be your birthday gift to me. My 40th birthday. I cannot believe I'm 40. Look at me. Do I look 40? I don't think so. I feel like I'm looking pretty good. But yes, I am 40 years old. That is wild. So I took off for Hawaii, stayed on the Big Island with some friends. It was a ton of fun. Did all sorts of exploring, adventuring, hiking, waterfall chasing. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Sorry about that. But we did do that was really dumb. But we did do that. And, we jumped off some cliffs. We honestly had a ton of fun. We had a sick Airbnb we stayed at with a good friend of mine, Jeff Sorensen. Shout out to him. He's not into sports, so he'll never hear that, but shout out to him anyway. Yeah, ton of fun. I lost a drone. It's my second drone I've lost in the last few months, both on the Big Island. Very, very unfortunate. I need to get better at that. But yeah, so your birthday gift to me can be to hit the subscribe button, whatever platform you are on. Share the podcast with some friends. Spread the word. Spread the love. We're pushing through the summer months here. These are kind of the slowest months for sports, as you all know. But the NFL is picking up. There's always some nice, fun drama in the NBA. Major League Baseball is in full swing, but I don't get too into that personally until closer to the playoffs. And you will hear me talk about it more then. College football is getting ready to go, but it's not quite here yet. So got some fun stuff still to talk about today. Definitely have some fun stuff to talk about today. So here's where we're at. This is kind of a fun one, but NBA 2K finally came out with their rankings and their top 10 players. And it's kind of interesting. Here's what they have. They have tied for first. They have LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those four guys are tied for first with the highest overall ranking on NBA 2K with a 96 overall. LeBron immediately went to Twitter and defended Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, said they should both be 99s. Did not see him do the same thing about himself or about Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Kawhi was tied for fifth with a 95, as was Nikola Jokic, a 95, and Joel Embiid, a 95. Then, tied for eighth, you had three guys. You had Luka Doncic, James Harden, Damian Lillard. So those were the top 10 guys that have come out so far for NBA 2K. So again, in order, you had a bunch of ties, right? So you technically, LeBron's not first. He's tied for first with Durant and Steph and Giannis, and then tied for fifth, because there's four guys tied for first. You have Kawhi, Jokic, Joel Embiid, and then that takes you down to eighth place, and there's three guys tied at eighth, Luka, Harden, and Lillard. Not a bad top 10. I think there's too many ties. Steph Curry is not the defender that Giannis is. He's not the defender that Kevin Durant is. He's not the defender that Kawhi is. So for him to have a 96 overall, I get it because he's so valuable offensively that it starts to make up for some of the lack of defense. He's a more gifted offensive player than Giannis is. And so while Giannis is the more gifted defensive player, it kind of equals out 96. I think Durant should be a little bit higher. I know he had the injury and stuff. Maybe they're going off of that. But to me, Durant is clearly the best player in the league. Giannis is right there behind him. So I think you should have seen those guys at like 98 and 97 respectively. Then maybe a Steph and a LeBron at 96. Too many ties. I like Lillard at 94, tied for eighth with Luka and James Harden. Lillard doesn't usually get a ton of love in that regard. I mean, everybody knows he's good, but this is like a real testament to just how good he is. I like that. Anyway, I thought that was kind of fun. I don't disagree with the list entirely, but it's just fun to see. You know, we had Trey Young got an 89 overall, and he was just all up in arms, just frustrated. I can't. When are you guys going to get it right? And as I thought about it, I was like, Trey Young 89, that's probably pretty accurate. I don't know if you're saying that Giannis and KD and LeBron are all tied, right? Are you that at 96? Is there really 7 notches down or whatever it would be? Yeah, 7 notches down to a Trey Young. I don't know. Probably, but if you're saying they're all tied, then it's like maybe not, because is there 5 notches between Damian Lillard and Trey Young? I don't know. Maybe it's more like 3. So maybe Trey Young should be like a 91. I think that would be more accurate. But it's kind of fun to see how much these guys care about it. They care so much about their 2K ranking. And the 2K rankings, it's kind of becoming almost like a stat. It's not obviously an official stat, but it's similar to like the Vegas line of who's favored. It's like Vegas knows who's going to win better than anybody. Obviously, they follow the money, and they change their odds a lot based on where the money's going to kind of make sure that they have they can win in the end. But really, you look at those early lines, and Vegas knows what's going on. Like, they know better than any analyst out there what's going on. And 2K ratings are kind of similar to that. They don't care what the MVP stuff was. They just look at your real, true performance on the court, and they give you an overall rating. And it's kind of, somewhat similar. James Harden, just as I'm looking at this Instagram post, he's got the crying, laughing emoji face. Well, bro, you got a 94 overall. Like, what's he so frustrated about? I guess he's wants to be that much higher, but he was tied for 8th with Luka. He probably sees that as an insult. He was behind Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's probably a little high at 95. Anyway, kind of a fun stat. Kawhi at 95. He's not even playing this year. Kawhi's not even going to play this year. But anyway, kind of a fun stat to see what those guys come up with. Okay, big thing here in the NBA. Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, as you all remember, 2018, they had this big fight. It was like November, December of 2018, the year that they ended up going to the finals and losing to the Raptors when Durant went down with the Achilles injury and Klay Thompson went out with the ACL injury. And they lose the finals to the Raptors. Kawhi Leonard gets finals MVP. And the team, the dynasty, the Warriors dynasty falls apart. KD goes to join the Brooklyn Nets, and the Warriors have not been back to the playoffs since. Well, there was a sit-down interview between Kevin Durant and Draymond Green. If this isn't the dumbest, weirdest thing ever. And they blame, first of all, it's just the two of them. And if you recall, this is when Draymond very openly and publicly called Kevin Durant the B word, which is a very insulting term, especially male professional athlete to male professional athlete, and tells him, we don't need you. We don't need you. We already won. We won without you. And again, this is after 2 championships with Kevin Durant. Durant's been the finals MVP twice. And he's saying, we don't need you. We did this without you. And that whole season, it was just like this awkwardness looming over the team. Draymond is like 4th wheel, barely even deserves to start. His career's gone downhill, and it's never really recovered. And he's the one getting all frustrated, yelling at their mega superstar, we don't need you, you be. Okay, crazy, stupid stuff by Draymond. These guys go on national television, do an interview, just the two of them, which is hilarious. It's like the most scripted BS ever. And they blame Steve Kerr, the head coach of the Warriors, and the general manager, Bob Myers. They blame them and how they handled it for the reason that Kevin Durant left. Huh? Like, they go on. They talk about how they just needed to clear the air. They just need to, it's only between K and I. This is Draymond speaking. It's only between K and I that we can figure this out. You guys are going to F this up. You're going to F this up. Draymond, you openly are admitting that you needed to just apologize to Kevin Durant. And that's all they were asking you to do. And you didn't do it. But yet it's their fault. KD, you're openly admitting that it just needed to be handled man-to-man in the locker room, players among players, open communication, and you didn't do it. But somehow it's the GM and the coach's fault. What? What is going on here? These guys are living in like some sort of twilight zone. These guys want to control the narrative so bad, it's laughable how much these two care about controlling the narrative. So now they're like besties again. Oh, we're such good friends. We just won a gold medal, blah, 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 blah. And they're scripting the whole thing. It's like, it's one of those interviews where you just know you're not going to get a real answer or real questions asked, because the person interviewing and the person being interviewed are clearly on the same side with a very obvious agenda. And so you're not going to get a real, genuine back and forth interview. And so the whole thing just made them look really silly. It's like when LeBron was sitting in the barbershop with all of his yes men surrounding him. And he talks about how he's the greatest player of all time because he beat the 73-win Warriors in the finals. And you're just like, yeah. And then they all that are just around him just like, yeah, just like robotically, yeah, you're right. You're the best. Oh, we worship you, LeBron. It's like, that's not an interview. Get an interview with a non-biased, non-partisan figure to do a real interview, ask the tough questions, debate you a little bit, challenge you a little bit. That's an interview. But for the two of these guys to sit down and blame the coach and the GM and like use them as scapegoats when all they did was they suspended Draymond for a game and they asked him to apologize. He didn't apologize. He's now telling us he should have apologized. He needed to talk to Durant. He never did it. They're openly talking about how that whole rift caused the breakup of the dynasty, and they're blaming these two other guys that weren't really even involved for how they handled it. But yet telling the cameras and all of us that what they were suggesting was exactly what needed to happen. We just didn't want to do it. Therefore, it's your fault. Huh? Like, the whole thing is a total mess. It's very confusing. Durant, by the way, says in that same interview that he would, quote, leave OKC for Golden State 1,000,000 times over again if he had to. Best decision ever. Wouldn't change it for anything. I felt like I was a perfect fit. I felt like I was just what you guys needed. Bro, they won a title before you got there. They beat you in the playoffs the year that you left to go join them. And they won 73 games before you got there. They did not need you. Now, granted, they got better with you. They won 2 titles with you, and they only won 1 without. But they only had 2 chances without, and Draymond got suspended for one of those games, and we can talk about that and how LeBron got that title. If Draymond doesn't get suspended for that game 5, who knows what happens? That's a 3-1 lead at home at Oracle for the Warriors, and Draymond gets suspended for a critical game 5. They lose that game. Game 6 in Cleveland, you're expecting the Cavs to win. They do. And then anything can happen in game 7, and LeBron and Kyrie came through in clutch. LeBron gets that sick chase down block. Kyrie gets the clutch 3-pointer. The rest is history. So that could have gone either way. That could have been the Warriors title. They could have gone 2 for 2, but they don't. They go 1-1. But then Durant's like saying how he would have done it 1,000,000 times over. It's so fake. It's so fake. Like, what would have been more real would be to say, hey, look, I am stoked about my decision. I feel really good about it. I helped this team win 2 championships. I got 2 finals MVPs, proving my value and my worth to those titles. And while I realized I went and joined a team that had just beat me, that I was up 3-1 on, that they won 73 games, they hadn't won the title the year before, and they did win 2 with me, and I was finals MVP. So I'm very happy with my decision. I'm also very happy to have moved on to do it a different way, with the Brooklyn Nets, hopefully. That would be more genuine. Like, yes, you're happy with your decision. Yes, you'd do it again, but you do realize you went and joined a 73-win team and blah, 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 blah. But to act like they needed you, they were in desperate need of me, to get over the hump. No, they weren't, bro. They won a title without you, and they won 73 games without you. And they beat you in the playoffs. So, kind of funny. And so he says that. And yeah, that's pretty much that interview. Okay, I'm going to move on. Preseason Talk NFL. Got to move to the NFL real quick. I was asked by Dave Glauser, a loyal listener. He was also with me in Hawaii when I lost the drone. Both drones have been lost with him at my side, so definitely need to blame him. But he asked me, if the Bucs can win. Who's the favorite, Bucs or the field? And I said, well, if I'm taking the Bucs or the field, I got to take the field for the Super Bowl this year. But if I'm choosing a favorite, I would probably take the Bucs. Now, I looked it up. Vegas actually has the Chiefs as the favorite right now, and the Bucs at number 2. My top 4, when he asked me, I said would have to be what we had kind of looked at last year for the conference championships, which would be Bucs Packers in the NFC, and then Chiefs Bills in the AFC. That's exactly what it is with the Vegas lines. I'm looking at it right now. Very interesting team at number 5, the 49ers. The 49ers come in at fifth highest, likelihood or favored to win the Super Bowl, which I find very interesting because they've got Garoppolo back. And, we're going to talk a little bit. In fact, I might as well talk about it right now while we're on the subject. But Trey Lance played the other night, had that sick touchdown pass. He was only 5 of 14, so not a great completion percentage by any means, but he had 128 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. Garoppolo is clearly going to be the starter for this team. They've got a great backup in Trey Lance. They've got somebody they can groom, much like you saw Aaron Rodgers do behind Brett Favre, much like you saw Steve Young do behind Joe Montana, much like you saw Patrick Mahomes do behind Alex Smith. In fact, this might be the best example. The Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes example. That might be the best example of Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, because Garoppolo is not a superstar quarterback. Alex Smith was not a superstar quarterback. Both of them are very clear, serviceable starters in the NFL. They belong as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And they're veterans, and they're talented, and they are smart. So these guys can learn a lot, learn a system, have no pressure as a rookie, maybe even not as a second-year player, and then that third season, it's like, okay, my time to shine. Patrick Mahomes stepped in having done that and just immediately dominated. Aaron Rodgers, same thing. Steve Young, same thing. So I think it's a really good comparison, especially given that Joe Montana and Brett Favre were like legendary, but Alex Smith, not legendary. Jimmy Garoppolo, not legendary. I think you'll see Trey Lance sit behind Jimmy Garoppolo for a season or maybe two, depending on how good he does and if he stays healthy. Jimmy Garoppolo, that is, and then step in. But they were the fifth highest rated, fifth most favored team to win the Super Bowl was the 49ers, Ravens at number 6. But the top two, of course, Chiefs, Bucks. I would say the Bucks are the biggest favorites. And I would say Chiefs behind that. But speaking of the quarterbacks and those high draft picks, I want to mention all of these. Dead last in the favored category for Super Bowl, by the way, speaking of quarterbacks, was the Houston Texans. And dead last because Deshaun Watson, we still don't know what's going on. He's under investigation with like 23 counts or charges, or not charges, but accusations rather, of sexual misconduct and abuse and things like that with the masseuses. So much uncertainty there. That's why the Houston Texans are dead last. And we'll see if Deshaun Watson ever plays a game again for the Houston Texans, or potentially even in the NFL, depending on how bad this turns out for him. But again, back to the quarterbacks that were drafted early. Mac Jones in his first preseason game, 13 of 19, 87 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Patriots beat Washington 22-13. Not bad, 13 of 19. That's pretty good for Mac Jones. You're going to see Cam Newton be the starter, Mac Jones be the backup. Again, very similar situation. That's how it should be. Give this kid a chance to learn the system. The Bears is interesting. The Bears probably have the deepest quarterback depth chart in the entire league. They have Justin Fields, who they just drafted. They just picked up Andy Dalton, and they have Nick Foles. So they have three very solid quarterbacks, none of them superstars. Justin Fields, of course, has the most promise. Nick Foles, we thought was a superstar. He's got a Super Bowl MVP. He's got a championship ring with the Eagles. And then obviously we've seen Andy Dalton be a decent starter for several years. Justin Fields is going to probably be the starter. I don't know. I'd be surprised if he's not. He went 14 of 20, 142 yards, had a touchdown, no picks, also had 33 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown. This kid looked like the real deal in his first game. Again, it's just preseason. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But it is a fairly good indicator of what you can expect. Justin Fields, of all the quarterbacks that were drafted early, looked by far the best. By far the best. Again, 142 yards passing, 33 yards rushing, a touchdown rushing, a touchdown passing, no interceptions, and 14 of 20. Very solid performance. Tua, by the way, because the Bears beat the Dolphins 20-13, and Tua, just wanted to mention, went 8 of 11 for 99 yards and 1 pick. Zach Wilson, BYU guy, here in Utah, BYU guy. Zach Wilson goes 6 of 9 for 63 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Trevor Lawrence, almost identical, 6 of 9 for 71 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Last one I wanted to mention, Jordan Love of the Packers. The big drama between, is Aaron Rodgers the starter? Is Jordan Love the starter? Is Jordan Love ready? Is Aaron Rodgers ready to move out of Green Bay? Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is staying. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is the starter. Jordan Love's trade stock, his trade value is going up. 12 of 17, 122 yards and a touchdown, no picks. The guy can play. The kid can play. He's probably ready to start some games. Maybe they trade him and get something good. Maybe they go with Aaron Rodgers 1 or 2 more seasons and then start him. We'll see how long he wants to sit on the bench and watch. But I'm very excited for the NFL season. Extremely excited for the NFL season. We'll be talking all sorts of NFL as that comes up. Last thing I wanted to mention before I sign off, back to the NBA. The Basketball Reference, one of my favorite websites, came out with their Hall of Fame probability. And similar to the stats we just went over for the NBA 2K ratings, this is an interesting one. So the following players have a 100% probability to make the Hall of Fame: LeBron, Chris Paul, Kevin Durant. After that, at 99.97, you have James Harden. His probability to make the Hall of Fame is 99.97. Steph Curry, 99.96. Russell Westbrook, 99.93. Dwight Howard, 99.73. Anthony Davis, 98.51. Melo, 98.42. Then a big drop-off to Damian Lillard at 90.63. Kyle Lowry, 85.74. Paul George, 84.06. Kyrie Irving, 83.66. Kawhi Leonard, big drop down to 77.69. Kevin Love, 73.47. Giannis, 67.85. Okay, here's what's interesting, and I'll put this on the screen for those watching on YouTube. Giannis is a 67.8, but Giannis is basically a 68% chance to make the Hall of Fame, and Chris Paul has a 100% chance. What? I get that Chris Paul's been doing it for longer, but 32% chance better? No question for Chris Paul, who has 0 titles, 0 MVPs, 0 Defensive Player of the Years. Giannis has 2 MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, and a title, and a Finals MVP. That's a 100% chance of making the Hall of Fame. He hasn't been doing it as long, but he's racked up all the accolades. The stats are all there. The awards are all there. There's no chance that Giannis only has a 68% chance of making the Hall of Fame. And Dwight Howard has a 99.73% chance. Some of these are just way off. This is according to Basketball Reference. According to Sean Bingham, Giannis is like a 98% chance. CP3, maybe also a 98% chance. He's been doing it long enough and racked up the stats that he'll be there, but there's no reason that Giannis won't as well. Kevin Love, Kawhi, Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time Finals MVP, 2-time champion, only a 77.69, only a 78% chance of making it. Very, very bizarre. Not exactly sure how they came up with this probability, what the formula was, but clearly, in my opinion, Giannis is rated too low, and some of these other guys are rated too high. Okay, guys, that is all the time I have for today. Please hit that subscribe button. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, all of the platforms, Apple, Google, you name it, we're there. Thank you for being here. Sorry for the absence. Have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you guys Monday. I am out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out stbsportstake.com. Simply the best in sports.
'Cause we are warriors.